What's up, everybody? It's your boy, StephenMotivate, back again with another episode of Politics. As usual, our political talk, where we try to talk about not just the people, but the policies that these people represent. So we are hopping back into the Republican platform. We are now on Chapter 5 of the Republican platform, where it says they are planning to protect American workers and farmers from unfair trade. Let's read it. So the Republican Party stands for a patriotic America First economic policy. Republicans offer a robust plan to protect American workers, farmers, and industries from unfair foreign competition. We commit to rebalancing trade, securing strategic independence, and revitalizing manufacturing. We will prioritize domestic production and ensure national independence in essential goods and services. Together, we'll build a strong, self-reliant, and prosperous America. All right. Sounds so far so good. They're going to put America first. Number one is they're going to rebalance trade. So it says our trade deficit has grown to over $1 trillion a year. So that means that we are importing more things than we're exporting, essentially, which, makes sense. We don't make a ton of stuff in America anymore. And as I talked about before, most of that's for a logical reason. Stuff can be made cheaper overseas. The free trade, that Adam Smith and other economic theorists have really pushed out and proposed, includes getting stuff for as cheap as possible. So that includes other countries. But it is also true that other countries may have other policies, different policies. They may be, the government may be subsidizing those industries heavily, which could throw off the balance of things, right? So, for instance, I think the argument most Republicans would say is that if we are a nation that, let's say we sell, I don't know, what could it be? Let's say furniture, right? Say we make our furniture in America and we sell it here, and we've got certain regulations, certain materials can't be used because we want our furniture to be safe and to not have certain poisons or toxins in it. And so that would be us really, domestically, us supporting a business or an industry, furniture making. And then let's say, because the world is global now, we have, let's say, a Chinese manufacturer of furniture, and they don't have to follow all those regulations. They can put any sort of toxins in their furniture, or they don't have to go through as many checks and balances, so they can truly make it as cheap as possible. And then they can import it over here, and it could look the same as ours. It may not be the same, but it could appear the same and could be priced at a lower price. And so naturally, the American furniture maker, if they cannot communicate and convey the fact that we're charging a higher price because we're following all the rules, then they would eventually, folks would likely demand the thing that looks the same and is a cheaper price. So the weights would disproportionately favor the foreign goods versus the domestic ones. So what they're saying here is that they're going to make sure that, what's made domestically is not disadvantaged by what's made in foreign countries. But like I just said, there's a lot of stuff that we don't really make here anymore. And it's for good reason, meaning that you can get stuff cheaper overseas, and customers tend to demand that because some of that stuff you can't control. So to bring some of that back would require you to essentially allow, to stop that free hand and say, no, you can't use stuff that's imported foreignly. You can only use domestic furniture. And that creates a whole complicated issue because we've now gotten out of that industry, right? And I'm not talking specifically, I'm talking in theory here. We've now gotten out of that industry, so we'd have to make some investments to get back into the furniture making and, et cetera, et cetera. And so the idea here that we're going to just rebalance trade by bringing stuff back or, making stuff domestically, it's a bit far-fetched only because, like, who wants to go backwards is kind of the thought there. If we've already gotten out of an industry, it'd have to be very appealing for us to go back and start doing that thing again, right? And the fact that we, are not in that industry anymore, and to stop someone else from making it, it's easier said than done, I guess, is an easy way to sum that up. So when I hear them say they're going to rebalance the trade, again, it lacks some details as to how you're going to do that, and does it even logically make sense for us to go back to industries or things that we've gotten out of? Now, what does make sense is there a way to hold countries accountable to make sure they're not importing things that break all of our regulations and then charge a lower price? Child labor, like I mentioned before, toxins or materials that are unsafe or could harm us. Is there a way to stop that and make sure those hazards aren't being brought in? There probably is, and that would make a lot of sense to try to level the playing field. In a global world, it's quite difficult, but it is something that should be addressed. So I'll give the Republicans some credit for, talking in that manner, right? And thinking in the way of how might we figure this problem out. It's probably, again, easier said than done. But it sounds like they seem to have some plans around it. Let's see. They say they're going to pass the Trump Reciprocal Trade Act. And they will support baseline tariffs on foreign goods and respond to unfair trading practices. So basically what I was talking about was more unfair trading practices, right? That wouldn't be fair if those things are going down. Taxes on American workers' families can come down. So it's, I don't know if it's completely far-fetched. I will say, and we talked about this before, when you deal with Trump's trade policies and some of the stuff he's done in the past, you wonder, has he really, are the tariffs that he put in place, have they done more harm than good? When he was in office, seems like, the price of goods started to go up. But then after the pandemic, right, which happened near the end of his term, things just went bonkers and prices were crazy, and things haven't really come down since then, truly. And so I don't know that I fully trust President Trump on trade exactly. You could say, hey, cut him some slack. There was a global pandemic. But I'm trying to talk about this with some sort of logic and intellect, which some might argue he doesn't deserve because he doesn't truly like to talk with intellect or with really logic. A lot of times he's just blurting out stuff, saying things, shock value. And who knows if this guy really thinks like this, or if this is, if he's really lacks the prowess, the intellectual prowess to have discussions that are really logical based and really dive into the details, you know, or if he's just doing it for show, right? Because he knows it garners attention. It's hard to tell. Is he just a regular guy that's a simple dude and he just says what comes to his mind and seemingly doesn't have enough sense to talk in a way that's intellectual or really dives into the details? Or does he have that sense and he's just doing it for shock value? We don't know, but I don't know that I trust him on the trade topic completely, because it just created you were able to be tough on China in one way, but it seems so overt, so just, all right, we're putting tariffs on, and it just came out of nowhere. Now we're doing new tariffs. And so it seemed very shotgun approach, right? We'll just see what sticks. And I think it created a lot of uncertainty in trade. And I'm not sure if it did more harm than good. We'll have to do more research. But the point of our talk here is that you give them some credit for saying they want to stop unfair trade practices, because, trading unfairly is not good. If one country allows, certain things to be made without regulations, and we've got to compete with that. But then you have to say, do we trust what they've done in the past as a party on trade? So that's sort of the topic there. Number 2 is secure strategic independence from China. So it says that Republicans will revoke China's most favored nation status and phase out imports of essential goods and stop China from buying American real estate and industries. So that the last part, maybe there should be some, again, so like if there are certain industries or companies that are Chinese owned now that people may not be aware of, I'll let you do your own research on that. And it may seem like an American brand, but now it's owned by a Chinese company. Which again, I'm kind of on the fence on that, because it's not, it may or may not be a good or bad thing, but I think we have to, again, look into those trade practices and what's fair and labor laws and all that sort of stuff to make sure things are being done right. And I do think that is important. So if stopping China from buying American real estate and industries is because they're misusing it or doing something inappropriate, or the regulations are not being followed, then okay, I support that. But if you go back to the first part of the sentence, phase out imports of essential goods, or if they're just saying they're going to phase out certain essential goods, in general, it's hard to tell, but this is where the logic doesn't really make sense completely, because it's like, as I've told you guys before, I think I told you about a book called Chip Wars, which is a really good book, and it describes why certain things have happened. And it's really based in economic theory as well, which you hear a lot of Republicans talk about free trade and that sort of thing. So if you let people trade freely, people tend to figure out how to do the thing most efficiently and the least costly, right? And because if you let people do that, then like we talked about with microchips, the reason that America doesn't make as many microchips here in this country is because over time, over the decades, we tried to do it and we weren't doing a good job of it. And there was the Taiwanese. If you're in Taiwan, there's the chip companies over there. They do a darn good job at making it. Now, could we do it? Yeah, I'm not saying we couldn't do it, but I'm saying there's a reason that happened. And that reason was because over time, the most efficient and the least costly place to make the goods was in Taiwan. And so you take that same logic and you apply it to China. There are some things that China's producing and manufacturing that they're doing that for a reason. It's because it's most efficient and it's least costly to make it there. And in some cases, they may be getting away with some stuff that's making it cheaper to make it there, right? They may not have to pay the same stuff and pay the same wages and all that sort of thing. So I think it's a tall task to say we're going to stop importing essential goods from China, because you can't just do that. If you're going to start manufacturing, let's call it toothbrushes, which I don't know how many toothbrushes are made in the United States versus China, but I imagine that's a small little thing. I imagine a lot of them are made in China. And so because I believe that to be true, you would think that you can't just stop that. You certainly can't stop it in 4 years. Because if we did, we would, you wouldn't have enough toothbrushes to go around. Now you could, the government could force Americans to make toothbrushes here, but then you got to get good at making them. So it could be like, yeah, we're going to stop them from doing it, but then we got to figure out how to make them and make them the right way and do it in such a way that, people like them. And, there's a lot that goes into it. So just the blanket statement of we're going to stop the import of essential goods, they don't have a lot of detail in here, so you don't know exactly what they're talking about. But again, just the idea that you're just going to stop and start a thing is just a bit foreign, right? You just can't do that. You do need to. There just need to be like a strategic plan of how we're going to develop and build this sort of independence from China. So that's number 2. I don't fully buy that one. Number 3 is save the American auto industry. Republicans will revive the U.S. auto industry by reversing harmful regulations, canceling Biden's electric vehicle and other mandates, and preventing the importation of Chinese vehicles. Okay. The auto industry, again, is one of these things that is interesting because you've got a lot of unionized workers. I come from Indiana, which a Midwestern state, very close to Detroit, Motor City. So I'm a bit familiar with the auto industry in general. And people, blue collar workers in these states, make good money because they work for these auto plants. But it is more costly because you got unionized workers, and I'm not sure what some of the other foreign cars makers are doing. If all, I'm not sure what those negotiations are like overseas and how that plays out. But saving this industry, I'm not sure exactly what they mean by this. But so I can't really speak to what they're going to do to revive it. I mean, people buy the cars they like. If you make good cars, if you get a good name, etc., you'll likely, people will purchase those cars if there's some sort of, reason or attraction to that certain vehicle. And so, again, Republicans are saying here that they're going to revive that. So let's just set that aside for a second. But I do understand a little bit about this canceling the electric vehicles piece. So Biden said he wanted the electric vehicles to be, I think, mandated by I think it was going to be 2030 originally. I think it's been pushed out since then. But I don't know that again, you see this sort of theme with the Republicans. It's like, let's kind of keep things the way they are. Let's not change too much. Who cares about electric vehicles? And look, a lot of people don't like electric vehicles. We rent cars with Turo, and we know that there's a big learning curve with electric vehicles still. So some people, if you like the idea of not being pushed into that, then you may agree with Republicans on this topic. But my thought on it is kind of this theme that I see, that let's keep things the way they are. Let's not push towards what's next. Let's delay it or slow it down. where if electric vehicles are the vehicles of the future, that in itself would do a number on the auto industry, meaning it would build it up. And, if everyone's got to eventually change their vehicles over to electric vehicles, that means a lot of people are going to be buying vehicles, right? And I could see why a lot of people that have, gas stations and stuff now, okay, let's delay that. Let's hold off on that. Let's not mandate that every vehicle be electric by 2030, every new vehicle. Because again, there's people that are invested in keeping things the same. But I think that thinking seems to be more rooted in the Republican Party than and we'll find out, than the other party, the Democrats. But we'll find out when we see they might both be thinking this. But it seems like the motivation for the Democrats is that, one, it's cleaner, right? Less pollutants coming into the air because of, gas burning vehicles. It's more efficient, right? And if we push folks into it, we'll get better at it more quickly. So even though folks, at some point we had to go from horse and buggy to car, right? And so that's an easy thing, right? Because one's way faster and better. It's like going to the next thing is more times than not probably a good thing. And so I just don't know if I buy like delaying that forever and, saving the industry, like as if electric vehicles are just I don't think it's going to destroy. I think it's actually going to be a big boost, right? If everyone has to buy new vehicles because all the vehicles are different, I see those companies doing extremely well. And I believe prior to, well, it depends on what happened in this election, this will be a big topic of. So I would think if I was invested, and I'm talking straight business now, if I was invested in General Motors, Ford, who else do we have? I think Chrysler's now owned actually by a foreign company. I'm not completely sure on that. But at least GM and Ford are two big car manufacturers here. And even Tesla, I would think if I'm invested in these companies and this mandate comes down, my stock is going to shoot up. And so it's a good business decision if the Democrats win and we kind of push this electric vehicle stuff through. So kind of holding off on it and stopping it or slowing it down sounds like what the Republicans are interested in there. And I don't know how much that affects like protecting American workers and farmers from unfair trade. I would think it would benefit our country as a whole if we push or kind of a leader and say, hey, we're going to electric vehicles. So I just don't quite agree on that. Let's look at a few other of these. Bring home critical supply chains, buy American, hire American, and become the manufacturing superpower. So 4 and 6, again, I just have slight issue with because you're just not going to do that overnight. It'll take some time. And have we been gearing our society towards that? Are people focused on the trades? Are people focused on manufacturing right now? I don't think so. I think a lot of folks are focused on technology and doing things, So I just don't understand exactly how we're just going to take everything from overseas and deglobalize, right? We've, at least I heard for much of my life, globalization and everything's global and da-da-da-da. And now this sort of theme, well, let's claw that back. Let's not be so global. We don't like it. It's not working out for us. And again, I think you see that theme with the Republicans. Let's go back. Let's, being global is bad for us, is not good. And I just don't know if I, at a basic level, really agree with that. And so I'd like to see some details on how they're going to make us a superpower on things that we may not want to create toothbrushes anymore in America. Maybe that's just not something we wanted to do. I don't know who would be interested in it. Now, maybe if they make enough incentives, we would all make it make sense. But I think there is some benefit to globalization. I just do. And I think it's not just my thought. I think the reality of things is that if something can be made cheaper, better, which is a Republican sort of mindset, it's a free trade sort of mindset. If it can be made cheaper, better over here, let them make it. And if it is meant to be made here in America, then it'll be made here, or we'll think of something new to make or something new to do. So I think this sort of bringing things back is, I just don't know about that one. It may work. I can't completely dismiss it, because if we were able to do stuff here in America, there would be some advantages to that as well. But I don't see how this plays out in reality. It's just hard to just go backwards like that. It's difficult for me. The Buy American and Hire American sounds very actually Joe Biden-ish to me. So it's good to see that even though you'd never know it from talking to these people or seeing them on TV, it looks like they agree on this. Buy American and Hire American. He talked about that a lot. And I think that's good. If we've got things that we can, let's look at the details. Republicans will strengthen Buy American, Hire American policies. So they're going to strengthen them. They're indicating that they already exist. They'll ban companies that outsource jobs from doing business with the federal government. So if you're going to do business with the federal government and get paid from the federal government, let's make sure that money's getting recirculated back into the American economy. Got no problem with that. I think that's a good tenet, and I think that's something that Democrats and Republicans agree about, but you don't hear it talked about much because there's always more focus on what we disagree about than what we agree about. So that is essentially the chapter 5. So I give them some credit for, we do have to deal with unfair trade practices. So how might we deal with that in a way that makes sense? Or in addition to that, let's be realistic about what we can make here and what we can't and what we will. And I don't like the blanket statements of, we're going to become a superpower in manufacturing. It's like, really? We are? People a lot of us want to be content creators. I don't know if we want to sit in a factory and do that. Does that make sense? It's kind of left our culture to even, we still make cars here. We still make a lot of stuff here. Don't get me wrong. But to just act like everything's coming back, when not, I don't know what percent, we'll have to look it up. When a large percentage of goods are made in China, and that's just where things are made now, and it's made cheaper, and I don't know. I don't know that you just claw all that back. Maybe we should be focused on something else. So that's kind of the dichotomy there. And then the, this sort of electric vehicle thing. I think we should push towards electric vehicles. I don't think people like them that much, but my reason for saying that is because I think it will do great things for the economy, because it'll force us to do it, and I think it'll be cleaner energy. And so I like that. I'm sure it'll have its own problems and issues as well, but I just don't like this idea we're just going to regress back. If electric is the new thing, let's try to figure that out. Let's try to push towards that. Let's not just stay stuck in what we've always done. Let's not hinder innovation. And I feel like in this sense, Republicans are saying, let's stop innovation on that. Let's keep things the way they are. And so I wonder who's in their pocket in terms of saying, let's keep things the way they are, right? So I get it. I mean, I guess if I owned 100 gas stations, I may not be for this, but I don't. And so that's my thought on that. So this is a real conversation, right? Global trade, how's this going to affect American workers? This is a worthy discussion point. This isn't just fodder or things just to get us excited. These are real discussions that should happen and should take place. And I think the question you got to ask yourself is who's going to think through this with fairness, with logic, and do it the right way. I think one thing that was appealing when President Trump first ran was that he kind of ran on this platform of, look, I'm a business dude. I know how to get stuff done. I'm not a government dude and that doesn't know how to get stuff done. I'm not going to be so in the weeds that I don't know how to get stuff done. And that, the funny thing is I feel like President Trump could win if I don't believe he will, but I feel like he could win very easily if he would just calm himself down and not be so disgusting. Like, I think it wouldn't be that hard, but it's that just, it's a very disgusting way. Like, none of us who've been taught, who went to college, like, we don't talk to people like that. We don't treat people like that. It's very counter civilization. Like, in many ways, the stuff that he says and does is uncivilized. And even beyond that, it's wrong, it's dirty, it's racist, it's nasty, it's lies, it's just, and so we dismiss it sometimes, or people that like Trump. I know people that like Trump and will be voting for him, and I'm still their friends. I'm not mad at them personally about it, but I think one reason they like him is because they think there's some sort of appeal to that of, oh, he's just a regular guy and he just, we all make mistakes, that sort of thing. But I think we've got to hold people in these higher positions to a higher responsibility. And again, I just don't fully trust that with the trade thing that they exactly know what they're doing. I think that sort of brashness, that sort of, we're just going to throw tariffs on, I think that's probably done a little more harm than good. So, worthy topic, probably need more research on it. But if you like somebody that's going to be brash and that's going to just, impose tariffs and you don't know if, what's going to happen next and a little uncertainty, then I think you vote Republican on this one. I think if you are more interested in in the environment, if you're more interested in if you believe that sort of thing, if you feel like that safety is important, if you feel like, I think they both agree on the Buy American thing, so that's not really a differentiator. But, the thing about workers is also interesting. We didn't really get into it, but typically the Democratic Party is the one who champions workers, UAW, unions. Republicans are against unions, typically, 100% against unions, where unions, in many cases, while it drives up labor costs, it also helps people, forces people to be paid a worthy wage. And so many people I don't think anyone's really given the Democrats credit for the type of support that Biden gave to the unions, where you're talking about, UPS drivers making hundreds of thousands a year, the United Auto Workers, a huge deal where they're getting paid more, they're getting better vacation days and all that. So in general, if you believe in workers and all that stuff, you probably want to vote you probably want to vote Democrat on this, because this sort of rhetoric in this document, they're going to protect workers, is actually not typically what they would say. They typically protect the big corporations and the businesses. So again, I'm not sure who wrote this or what they're trying to do with that, but those are kind of the two choices you have on this one. Talked a little bit longer than I wanted to on this, but I hope that helps you. This is, again, the policies, not just the people, and hopefully that gives you some insight as we're getting closer and closer to Election Day in the United States. So I hope you vote. Voting is important. You've got the right to, and especially if you're Black. I try to speak a lot to Black folks on this. You, I believe, have a responsibility to. So until next time, you guys stay motivated. It's your boy, StephenMotivate. Peace.